capturing slow motion storytelling shots in 60 FPS and 120 FPS solely come down to the creative direction of the videographer and what makes most sense for the edit. Keep in mind that when we film in 60 FPS at 1/125 shutter speed, we can slow that clip down to 40%, which is a little more than half speed. 120 FPS must be filmed at 1/250 shutter speed and is about twice as slow as 60 FPS slowed down to 40%. If your shutter speed values are not set correctly, this can result in your footage looking choppy and you won't get the desired buttery smooth slow motion that we're all looking for. This is an example of 60 FPS slowed to 40% at 1/50 shutter speed. As you can see, the footage isn't as smooth as if we were to properly set our shutter speed to 1/125 for 60 FPS. In my opinion, 120 FPS is ideal for speed ramping. However, until you get into the budget of $2,500 or more, camera bodies any cheaper than that will most likely not have the option to film in 120 FPS, but only in 60 FPS, which is totally fine and for the most part is actually my preferred frame rate to use because the cameras I own don't film 120 FPS in 4K like the Sony FX3 does or A7S III and Canon R5. Whether you choose to film in 60 FPS or 120 FPS, I personally love these frame rates for music video B-roll shots for the sole purpose of speed ramping. I love the look of shooting the odd performance scene in 60 FPS and slowing the clip to 40%, and when the artist line comes in, we normal speed the clip so that the artist goes from slow motion to singing the song in perfect sync. When it comes to filming music video B-roll shots to further tell the story within your visuals, before pressing record, make sure to relay to the artist exactly what scene you want out of them and specify what hand and body movement you need them to do. The greater detail you can break this down for the artist, the better the shot will look. Here's an example of me on set with an artist doing a few different types of speed ramping B-roll techniques. First off, we're going to want to capture a shot of the artist's feet walking in 60 FPS slow motion. This is what the shot looks like in regular speed, and this is what it looks like slowed down to 40%. For a shot as simple as the artist's feet walking, I would much rather film this shot in 60 FPS rather than 120 FPS, due to the fact that 120 FPS slow motion is much slower than 60 FPS slow motion, and we don't want such a minor B-roll shot to drag out too long. Second shot we have on the list is the artist walking towards me while looking at the camera and off to the camera. We must remember to relay what we want from the artist first and give the artist direction so we can capture the perfect shot and that we're both on the same page. This shot can be captured in slow motion 60 FPS or 120 FPS. Again, this camera setting comes down to the creative direction from the videographer. The third shot I love capturing in 120 FPS, but again, can be captured in slow motion 60 FPS, is relaying to the artist that you're going to film this shot in slow motion and play the song in the background. Tell the artist that these clips will solely be slow motion shots and to vibe to their song rather than singing the song out loud like a performance scene. Tell the artist to include a lot of hand movements and body movements throughout the song. Normally, I like to film only half of the song's worth of B-roll, as you can capture anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes of slow motion footage, which is plenty to play around with in post. Just be sure to not go too crazy on your gimbal or handheld movements when capturing this, and to keep the camera as steady as possible throughout this shot, as it will only be used as B-roll cutaways in your edit. The fourth shot, I want to lay over a music video I directed, shot and edited for this artist Pimpton. This music video doesn't introduce a performance scene until 21 seconds into the edit, where we show Pimpton's alarm clock going off in the morning and him going through his morning routine of getting ready in the morning. We establish this with storytelling B-roll shots, which are all in regular speed at 24 FPS, filming at 1/50 shutter speed. Once we establish Pimpton getting out of bed, we introduce the opening line of the lyrics while he leaves his bedroom and is entering the washroom. We then show his morning getting ready routine where Pimpton is washing his face and washing up, using as many different camera angles as possible, all shot in 24 FPS at 1/50 shutter speed. Again, splitting this environment up with a quick one-line performance scene where Pimpton looks up at the mirror and sings one line of the song, to which we immediately get back into B-roll shots from various different camera angles. We then have B-roll shots of Pimpton's coffee and smoking routine where we show for 30 seconds without any performance scenes of Pimpton making a morning coffee, rolling a blunt, sparking the blunt, and then we finally introduce another quick performance scene. So as you can see, we use B-roll shots to tell the story and keep the viewer as engaged as possible by still implementing performance scenes where necessary. Today's video is sponsored by Epidemic Sound. I've been using Epidemic Sound for 6 years, whether it's for paid client video work or my YouTube content. My favorite feature Epidemic has to offer is their AI video upload song matching tool. Simply upload test footage of a project you're working on to Epidemic Sound, and their AI platform will spit out a long list of songs that match the vibe and pace of your video, saving you hours of finding royalty-free music that fits the vibe of your visuals. Not only do you get a library of thousands of royalty-free music, but you also get access to thousands of realistic sound effects. Click the link below to get a free 30-day trial to Epidemic Sound that can be canceled at any time. No commitment necessary. Now let's get back to the video. Once you can start to shot list your music videos to the point where you can tell a story using B-roll shots while sprinkling in performance scenes where you see fit, this will elevate your music video shooting game to a whole other level. Last but not least, when I'm on set and I'm deciding whether or not I want to use 60 FPS or 120 FPS, sometimes it comes down to the lighting on set. If I'm filming in broad daylight outside, I can choose one or the other and not have to worry about not having enough light, because if I'm stuck in a low light situation, it's not worth me filming in 120 FPS due to the fact that my image will become much darker at 1/250 shutter speed. When I film at 60 FPS at 1/125 shutter speed, I have a little more wiggle room to allow more light to hit my sensor, especially if I have a low f-stop lens on my camera. The absolute last thing I want to do is crank my ISO value to the point where it starts to show noticeable grain in my image at 1/250 shutter speed, when I could still achieve a clean slow motion shot at 1/125 shutter speed shot in 60 FPS.